So I'll just explain what I'm doing now. So I graduated last summer and I decided to have 2 months where I didn't think about it at all, because I thought if I want to do this work, I want it to be coming from a place where I actually want to be doing it and feel in a good headspace, and I'm not doing it because I should be or because I feel bad. I feel like students need this work, so I need to give it, because that's something that I've been prone to in the past, is feeling like I need to give. But it actually, after 2 months, I realized it was something that I really wanted to come back to, that I felt really passionate about. And as weird as it might sound, I love this work that I do. So over the last 6 months or so, I have been conducting focus groups and interviews with students and recent graduates. I've been doing this in a way that they kind of double up as an opportunity for people to share and be listened to. So I hope that it's also a healing experience for them, and for them to feel empowered, like their story is going towards something that can support others. And I've also been speaking to a number of professionals about different ways that they've seen support is most effective. From all of this, I've gathered a lot of information and a lot of ideas about what would be most helpful for students going forward. I have a lovely committee of 10 current students and recent graduates who have had personal experience of loss to continue steering this work as I go forward. And they help me if I want to trial a workshop, if I have ideas about what I want the website to look like. They kind of bring in a lot of voices to make sure that it's going to be as relevant as possible, not just to people that have had my experience of loss, but to people that have had very different ones, because I realised that I myself have experienced it in one way and others may completely disagree with what I feel is the best support. So it's come to a point now where I have decided to work with 3 main avenues. The first one is having an online platform. So this will be a website and social media. I've just started the social media. I've got an Instagram page and I'm trialing stuff on that. But online, this will be support for those, well, for anyone, but especially for those who do not feel ready or like they want to participate in face-to-face workshops or more direct support. It's something they can go on in their own time, in private. No one has to know that they've been on it, and there'll be a range of resources. So some people might like to read blogs, some people might like to watch videos. I've got a partnership with a podcast which is about young people that are grieving. I also want to create an online exhibition so students can submit their artwork and people can connect to it in that way. The second way of working is by offering services to universities. So this will be from therapeutic workshops for students to staff training, and also workshops about supporting a friend through grief, because one of the things that I've realised is that a lot of peers are also struggling because they don't know how to relate to their friends, and they're really trying to do a good job, but they just don't know what to say. They don't feel comfortable having those conversations. So offering that form of support as well is important to me. Within this work, one area that I'm quite interested in particularly is working with medical schools, because medical students are going to be experiencing a lot more loss and grief in their professional lives as they go forwards. And if they've experienced a personal loss on top of that, that can cause a lot of complication, and their grief can actually be compounded by the fact that they're seeing it in the workplace as well as in their personal life. And from having spoken to lots of medical students, there is quite limited education in this area. And there might be some support, but it's kind of trying to improve that and make sure that there's more robust grief support within medical schools. And the final way that I'm hoping to work is by supporting student-led projects. I would really love students to be able to come to our organisation with an idea, whether it's someone recently said that they want to do a series of photographs around grief, with students in their university and being able to support those projects, promote them, share them, and also offer emotional support and mentoring so that those students are doing it in a healthy way where they're able to maintain their own boundaries and maintain their own well-being, even if they're doing this quite in-depth work. Our core values as an organisation are firstly balance. This is what I was talking about earlier. It's balancing, acknowledging the difficulties and the emotional pain of loss, balancing that with the possibility of hope and in connection and empowerment, and not giving more kind of to one or to the other, acknowledging that some people will be more prone to one and some will be to the other, but trying to make space for both these experiences. Secondly, to be representative. As I've said, I've done lots of focus groups and interviews, and I still have a committee of students and recent graduates to help guide this work to make sure it's actually being led by personal experience. Thirdly, is to be inclusive. I'm very aware that a lot of grief support is dominated by white women, and actually white women aren't the only people to experience loss, and to be able to represent and be inclusive to all groups of people and making time to look into how different groups might be affected differently. So for example, within therapy, I've been reading recently about someone that is Black may feel uncomfortable speaking to a white therapist because there are more layers than their standard grief to come into that. So trying to make sure that these are being acknowledged and that this space is open to everyone. And finally, to be engaging. So a key part of my work, like I said, I'm quite interested in creativity. I really want the website and the social media and the way that the workshops are run to be engaging and modern and youthful, and without, I don't have a better word for it, but to try and make the support in some way cool, because a lot of people find that they don't want to associate themselves with grief and bereavement, and they don't want to go to that support group, and they don't want to look on that website because it's not cool and it's not something they want someone to look over their shoulder in the library and see them on. So being able to kind of, I guess, use the aesthetics of the website and have it slightly more engaging and interactive and aesthetically pleasing is, although it might seem like a shallow value, it's something that actually students find really important. So just before I finish and kind of open the floor up for questions and any more comments, because I'd love to hear from you, I just wanted to give a few key kind of tips that I have. And it's hard to give tips because, like someone said earlier, grief is going to be completely different for everyone, and there's no one way of supporting a student. But I think having acknowledgement, openness and awareness around campus and on your website. There was a study by the University of Bath 2 years ago that found that 30% of university websites didn't actually acknowledge bereavement on their wellbeing page. So just having the acknowledgement that this is something that happens and that there are actually a lot of people in the same boat going through this, and that it's normal and okay to be grieving while you're at university. Secondly, I would say that personal tutors can be quite key in support, and that someone might go to their personal tutor and they might be very compassionate, they might be open to having that conversation and signpost to support, and that can lead you on a kind of upward spiral. On the other hand, if you go to your personal tutor and they say, oh, I'm sorry, and then they move on to the next thing, that can lead to a downward spiral where you think, okay, there's no support out there. So whether it's getting training for personal tutors specifically, or having that conversation, or making sure personal tutors have a resource pack with them, that is a really key point of contact for a lot of students. I would say having a range of support is really important because different students want different things. Like I said, some students might want to be face-to-face with others. Some people might prefer to do something online where actually they don't have to join in. They might just want to listen to others speaking. And finally, and I actually mentioned this already earlier because of what someone else said, which is that you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present, and you have to be okay with whatever that student or that person is going through. Now, just before I move on to questions, I actually wanted to read a poem. And this is because for me, creativity is hugely important, and being able to write is something that's really helped me. And I would hope that this short poem kind of summarizes my experience of grief and the way that I want to work with students going forwards. I wrote this a few weeks after my dad died in 2018. It's called What Shapes Me. I knew grief would change my life when I was 10 years old, confused and weeping for the death of my brother and the broken world that fell around me. Now I am 21 and I cry for my father, having learned what it means for someone to be gone, and I cry for the beauty of the world that carries on around me. I see now more than ever that hope and not grief shapes my life, who I am and how I see the world. And I can finally say, in truth, from a heart that's still healing, that I am myself and the world is lovely. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'd love to hear if anyone has any thoughts or questions now.